This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 85th time ever, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios in some part of western Pennsylvania. It's another exciting edition of the Reviewing Network Live on this lovely Easter Sunday. I don't know. I thought I'd do something fun with the opening a little bit here. Change it up a little bit because why the hell not? But hope you all had a good Easter. It is now 9 o'clock as I'm recording this on Sunday night, April the 20th. And it's much later than I usually put these videos out here. So that means that this week is going to be more of a truncated down show. We're still going to have a story to talk about here because it's related to something that's going to happen on Thursday, which I'll be talking about what I'm doing for that. But the big story, of course, is the box office, and all the other stories I had were stories of some interest in particular. There were some stories we could talk about, all the Star Wars stuff that came out of Star Wars Celebration. We found out that the new Star Wars movie Starfighter from Sean Levy and Ryan Gosling is coming out in summer 2027, so that's some pretty big news. Mikey Madsen was offered a role in that movie, but she dropped out. Not even dropped out, she passed on the project. We also had Robert Pattinson getting signed to do Duel, the new Dune movie. I'm getting all my names mixed up here, but yeah, it's getting late, and I've got a lot of other stuff to do tonight, so it's going to be a truncated down show. We're still going to have a story I want to cover after I'm done with the box office, and the box office has some stories of their own, especially with the number one movie. Yes, we have a new number one movie, and I think you could take a guess at what that is, but we'll get to it eventually, so let's just get to it. The number 5 movie this week, still hanging in there from last week, is Warfare, the Alex Garland co-directed film. His follow-up to Civil War, which brought in $4.8 million, dropping 41.6% from last week, bringing its 2-week total to $17.1 million, which is really not that bad, considering that this film did not have a huge marketing campaign, and the film only cost $20 million. So it did overall, it has been doing pretty well, all things considered, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it's been doing pretty well, despite the lack of marketing in general on this movie. I mean, the other movies that are in this list, well, except for one, had a huge amount of marketing, and then this one just kind of came and went. I mean, it just didn't really have a big marketing push. Usually that's a bad sign, but hey, good on this movie, man. This movie found an audience no matter what, so what can you really say about that? But speaking of movies that did have marketing, this did better than some of the other movies that we have here, which brings us to number 4, The Amateur, which dropped 51.4% from last week, bringing its 2-week total, $7.2 million this weekend, bringing the 2-week total to $27.3 million. If you count worldwide numbers, it is up to $64.3 million. I'm trying to see what the budget on this was, because I think it was a higher budgeted movie. Okay, $60 million. Maybe a little bit more than I thought it was, but it did at least make its budget back in terms of worldwide numbers, but I think it's got a long way to go for it to become profitable, so take that for what you will, I guess. Which brings us to the number 3 movie this week. The big surprise of the last couple of weeks, but considering what day it is today, this one really isn't that much of a shocker. That's still hanging in there. The King of Kings, which only dropped 10.8% this weekend. Only big animated feature out there for the kids right now. $17.3 million this weekend, bringing its 2-week total to $45.3 million. Worldwide numbers, not really that much of an impact right now. It hasn't even passed the $45 million when you take in the worldwide numbers. But, you know, a film that didn't have a whole lot of marketing for it, but it still made a lot of money. The budget on this was only $5 million, and has been getting decent reviews overall. So really, not really much of a shocker at all that this thing did pretty well overall. So that's the power of Angel Studios for you. So Which brings us to the most intriguing thing about this top 5, the top 2 movies, which takes the number 2 movie. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the chicken jockey has finally been taken down. A Minecraft movie is the number 2 movie this week. By about $4 million. I mean, yeah, $41.3 million is not that bad of opening for a weekend total for the number 2 movie this week. But 47.4% drop off, bringing its 3-week total to $344.6 million. Cost $150 million to make. It's already crossed $720 million worldwide. It's a hit. I don't know why, and it wasn't worth my time whatsoever. It's still the worst movie of the year. There has been an update, though, on a video I posted, the discussion I had last week about how it's ruining the theater-going experience and how Jack Black was fine with it at first because as long with Jared Hess, but Jack Black recently went to a screening of a Minecraft movie, and he did in fact go out there and tell people to not act crazy. I mean, he literally was at a screening for the movie. Let me see if I can find it here. I mean, this is probably from his PR people that did this, but he did go out to a screening of the movie and basically told the audience this.
For today's presentation of a Minecraft movie, please, no throwing popcorn, and also no lapis lazuli, and also absolutely no chicken jockeys. Oh, yeah. I am Steve. Yeah. Look what I got. My actual pickaxe. Are you ready to rock? Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy a Minecraft movie!
I mean, okay, it's kind of cool that Jack Black actually went to the screening for that. And technically, he didn't say, stop doing that. He was just reading off a card and all that type of stuff. And also, I love how he's channeling his inner Ned Schneebly from School of Rock. Hello, this is Ned Schneebly.
I think he's just coming in right now. Ned, phone!
Hello, this is Ned Schneebly.
I mean, it's gotten better, I'll give him that. And yeah, technically he really wasn't coming out against stuff he said beforehand. He was just taking the crowd on, and I've said my piece on that one here, and I'm just ready for this to get out of here, and hopefully this will be the last time I'll have to talk deeply about this movie, but it's currently the top grossing movie of the year, and hopefully a much better movie will come along and surpass that this summer. But I don't think it's going to be the number 1 movie, even though this is something very important to talk about with the number 1 movie. And I got to hand it to you people. You found your way to The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. It found its way into the number 1 spot this weekend, $45.6 million. Okay, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it with you on that one. It's not The Day the Earth Blew Up. That's actually been out of theaters now out of the U.S. theaters, even though it is playing now overseas, so hey, we got Coyote vs. Acme out of it, so the real number 1 movie is, of course, The Autumn Nights, the Robert De Niro, Barry Levinson movie that came out a couple weeks ago. Okay, I'm not going to keep doing this to you anymore. It's friggin' Sinners. It's the movie that everyone was expecting me to say. It was the only major new release this weekend, and Sinners cleaned the hell up at the box office this weekend. I gotta give him credit. I did not think this movie was going to do well, specifically on Easter weekend, because you got an R-rated horror movie, with stars that have a loyal fan base delivered into it, but are they going to come out on Easter weekend? Because the last time they tried to open a movie like this on Easter weekend with as big of a buzz as Sinners was Grindhouse almost 20 years ago, and that didn't do very well. But lo and behold, Sinners was a massive, massive hit. $45.6 million this weekend, beating out a Minecraft movie, and if you take in worldwide numbers, it's up to $61 million worldwide. But the film only cost $90 million to make. And Warner Bros. Was one of those companies that really fought to grab this movie. I thought that David Zaslav was going to somehow find a way to screw this movie over, and lo and behold, he didn't. He let the Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan cook, and boy, did they ever cook. This is This is my favorite movie of the year so far, and that was really tough to say because I love The Day the Earth Blew Up, but, I mean, this movie was one of those great visual experiences that you really need to see to be believed. Like, this is something where you have to see on the big screen. Like, that's how big this type of a movie is in general. But yeah, we're going to talk more about this over the next couple of weeks, because I would not be shocked at all if this film did eventually go on to become a massive hit and do pretty well overall. It's going to make its budget back regardless, and it will more than likely be the #1 movie at the box office next weekend, and then the next week it'll be all about Thunderbolts, but all in good time. But there is one more thing I want to cover about Sinners, because apparently there was a deal arranged in this that is pretty unprecedented and something that definitely deserves to be talked about here. So let's go ahead and delve into that. So yeah, there's actually a little bit more into this deal in particular that Warner Bros. Made that is definitely getting a lot more notice now that the film is a big success. And I've got the story right here from Business Insider that gives you kind of a little bit of a detail of what is going on with this movie and why some Hollywood executives are worried about what this could possibly do for the future. So let me go down to the highlighted part here, because this is highlighted right here. And I'll start around... it talks about how Sinners made over $45 million. I'll start right here with the paragraph before this. This is from Business Insider, and it says, the New York Times reported that Warner Bros. Bet big on Sinners, spending at least $90 million to bring Coogler's vision to life, as well as another $60 million in international marketing costs. A rare lucrative compensation deal that Coogler reportedly struck with the studio means he will receive a share of its box office revenue before Warner's turns a profit. Vulture reported that Warner Bros. Agreed to give Coogler an unspecified percentage of the gross ticket sales before the studio deducts costs. So, kind of similar to what happened when Batman came out in 1989, and Jack Nicholson got some of the profits on that whenever that came out. But this is a very unprecedented deal in general here that says, as we continue on here, Sony and Universal were also trying to snag Sinners, so to seal the deal with the Oscar-nominated director, Warner's also made other concessions. These included giving Coogler a say on the film's final cut and reverting ownership of the film to him 25 years after its release. Coogler previously told Business Insider the only motivation for him to add this particular clause into the deal was because of how it reflected the theme of black ownership, which is explored in the film. Coogler says he doesn't own any of his other films and has no plan to own future titles. Nevertheless, it's a rare deal in Hollywood and puts Coogler among a group of elite filmmakers who could command such power in negotiations. Another one, for example, is Quentin Tarantino, who did the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, hence why Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was released by Sony in theaters, and the sequel that was just announced not too long ago is going straight to Netflix. Now, moving over to Vulture, they have a very interesting take on this story in general, Actually, hold on one second. Not from Vulture, because Vulture apparently decided to... I'm up on my monthly usage of the articles, so I went over to AV Club. AV Club has a similar story here, and basically kind of gives us a sum up of what the studios are worried about here. It says here in the article, this... excuse me. This is per a recent deep dive from Vulture, which not only explored the terms of Coogler's... Actually, let me start from the beginning here. We can't imagine it takes much to make a movie studio extremely executive nervous these days. The box office is so sluggish in the wake of the COVID-19 lockdowns. Not even superhero movies can act as guaranteed slam dunks, and you know that smug bastard Seth Rogen is out there somewhere, just waiting to turn your latest public fiasco into a TV show. Case in point, the studio TV show on Apple TV Plus, which I've seen a little bit of it. It's really, really good. One of the best shows of the year. But, no wonder the Hollywood elite are so skittish that something as interesting as Ryan Coogler's recent deal for his Southern vampire movie Sinners has some of them screaming Hollywood apocalypse. This is per a recent deep dive from Vulture, which not only explored the terms of Coogler's unorthodox deal, but also found some anonymous Hollywood types willing to call it as very dangerous, as well as to say it could be the end of the studio system, which was certainly a real boon to the headline writers. We kid because it's generally a good examination of the issue, but some of this panic definitely feels a little overblown. It's like this. Coogler, who was fresh off a very serious run of hits, including Creed and 2 Black Panthers, when he was shopping the Michael B. Jordan project around, had a number of requirements when he looked to hammer out a deal for Sinners with studios. Some of these were big asks, but not outside the realm of possibility for a guy certainly riding a series of major box office wins. Final cut of the movie and first dollar grosses. That is, Coogler starts getting a portion of the film's profits from the moment it opens in theaters, rather than having to wait for the studio to make back its money. The really biggie, though, was one that more than one studio reportedly balked at. Coogler wanted ownership of the film to revert to him after 25 years. This is unorthodox to say the least. Hollywood studios derive a ton of their value from the vast libraries of films they own. So losing even one and all of its attendant potentials for licensing, sequels, and redistribution, etc. is usually pretty unthinkable. It usually only happens when a director takes huge risks like self-financing a movie. Like, for example, Mel Gibson owns The Passion of the Christ, for instance, which is getting a sequel to, while Richard Linklater has partial ownership of Boyhood. Quentin Tarantino, as I said before, meanwhile, will get an ownership of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood back in a couple of decades, essentially as a continuation of old deals that he used to have with Miramax from the days when the whole studio was basically resting on his back. Coogler scored a rights reversion of what's only his fifth movie is an outlier. One that's as much of a reflection of how much Warner Bros. Pictures have been floundering in recent years as Coogler's own rising star status. Accepting a current Minecraft shaped like Raft, which has at least a chance in its third week of eclipsing Sinners when it premieres at the box office this weekend. So I guess this was made before the weekend box office came out, but the studio had been taken in the teeth ever since the start of COVID. No studio weathered the storm in perfect condition, but Warner Bros. Wound up blowing up not just its finances, but its reputation, alienating creatives with decisions to put movies on VOD and streaming alongside their theatrical releases. The studio is still smarting from losing Christopher Nolan over this. So studio heads Pam Abdy and Michael DeLuca were apparently willing to go to extreme lengths to make Coogler happy on Sinners. Coogler has said that he considers the ownership deal a one-off, rooted at least in part of Sinners' focus on themes of black artists' ownership of their own culture. Most of the hysteria surrounding it is essentially hand-wringing about what comes next. What happens if some other up-and-coming act asks for the Ryan Coogler deal? Seems like you just say, sure, show us the Ryan Coogler money, but we're not extremely skittish Hollywood executives. That's the article saying that, not me. So that's what they're putting in the parentheses. For now, it's mostly a look into the mindset of the Hollywood animal, where any film exists not so much for its own sake, but how far it can be milked in perpetuity. Okay. How it can be milked in perpetuity. There we go. Meanwhile, we get some absolutely killer quotes out of the anxiety, including one unnamed studio type saying, "Look, here's the problem in Hollywood, okay? There's no rationale or logic behind absolutely anything. We'd always wondered." Is that it? That's just kind of a weird way for the article to go out. But I'm pretty sure that executive was probably David Zaslav, considering how he's completely destroyed Warner Brothers in general since he's gotten there. But it's funny how some studios are looking at this and, they're talking bad about this, like this is the end of it all, when it literally says in the article that Mel Gibson, Richard Linklater, and Quentin Tarantino did this with their movies that they had in the past. So, I don't understand. What is so different about Ryan Coogler in this case? What could possibly spark this huge alarm from Hollywood for the fact that, Mel Gibson, Quentin Tarantino, Richard Linklater are all able to do that. These white guys, and then I think I just answered my own question there. But keep in mind, this is also coming from Variety, because, after that amazing hit piece they did on Rachel Zegler when Snow White bombed, clearly you got to trust them, right? No, of course you don't, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But yeah, so this is a pretty interesting thing that they did here. And the fact that Ryan Coogler had the fact that he has all these hits on his hands, and that he was able to use that as leverage for this big deal. That's really something for him. And you got to give the guy a lot of credit, because he is a terrific filmmaker, and people are coming out to see these movies. People are coming out to see these films. They're making them the big blockbuster hits, and it's only going to elevate him and Michael B. Jordan into becoming the next big superstars that they rightfully deserve to be. These guys have made some great movies in the last decade plus, and yeah, I really love what they've done. I love the fact that they've kind of changed the system around here. This isn't going to end Hollywood in general. Hollywood has to advance with the times and has to realize that it can't stick with the same system for a long, long time. That's why I think people are more lenient to something like the Seth Rogen Show, The Studio, or what Ryan Coogler just did here. I think there is a lot of openings for Hollywood to advance and get with the times. And I think that the executives really got to know that, hey, times are changing, whether they like it or not, and you got to adjust to it, or you're in danger of losing everything that you're in danger of losing your respectability and and the relevancy of your studio if you keep living under the same things over again. So kudos to Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. They did a smart thing with this deal they put together, specifically with Ryan Coogler, but made a great movie out of it. This is, as I said before in my review, this is a film we're going to be talking about at the end of the decade as one of the best films of the decade. It's going to be hard to top this. And I mean, it's going to be hard for the next 5 years to give us an experience like this movie did. This is the anti a Minecraft movie. This is the type of movie that needs to be seen in the theater to have this incredible theatrical experience of whether you see it in IMAX or see it in a regular theater. It's worth it just to see that. I mean, it's worth it on that front there. So, kudos to them. They did a great job with the movie, and it paid off big time. So anyway, that's the box office in general. Next week's box office, the only one that is really will have any interest is The Accountant 2 and also Until Dawn. Will those movies be successful? The Accountant 2, some people are saying $40 to $50 million on that one opening weekend, which I don't get at all because I like The Accountant. I thought it was fine and all, but they have not been selling The Accountant 2 the way that the first Accountant, the way they sold they're selling the second one here. The second one does not feel like the same movie in my opinion. And Until Dawn, yeah, it's got the benefit of David Sandberg, who's a respectable director with the Shazam movies and Lights Out. And then there's also Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith, which supposedly is getting good early pre-ticket sales. So who knows? Maybe this will actually make more than the Attack of the Clones the last re-release did. Because I think Attack of the Clones made $8.8 million, if I'm not mistaken. It was either that one. It was a recent Star Wars release, and I'm trying to figure out which one it was. Let me double check here just to make sure. Okay, it wasn't Attack of the Clones. It was Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace actually did $8.7 million. So there's a possibility Revenge of the Sith could actually make more than that, especially considering it's the last Star Wars movie of the original 6 films. So we'll see how that pans out in general. Could do pretty well on a lackluster weekend overall, with everyone's going to be talking about either Sinners or The Accountant 2 being the number one movie this weekend. I think it's going to be. I'm believing it's going to be Sinners, but I would not be shocked at all if The Accountant 2 somehow finds a way. I mean, it's just. I don't know, but I think it's going to be Sinners, but don't quote me on that. So, all right, so that's the box office in general. There's one more story I want to cover here, and it's related to something that's coming up this week. So some of you may know that this week coming up on Thursday is, of course, the 2025 NFL Draft Live from Green Bay, and I bring this up because I'm going to be doing a live rewatch of that. So on the night of the draft, you'll see another episode of Reviewing Network Live coming up on that day, as I'll be watching it live, and then after the draft is over, the night one is over, I'll go ahead and put the episode up, so you'll be able to check that out afterwards. But I'm bringing this up because there's going to be a lot of quarterback buzz all across the board with all the different draft picks, and one team in particular is a team that we're kind of distancing ourselves right now, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I've said it before, man. The Pittsburgh Steelers and I, we're like one of those couples where, we want to make this work. We've kind of lost that spark, and we've separated for a long period of time, and then one point we just left each other, and then all of a sudden, we slowly but surely started to come back together, and then everything looks like we're gonna put everything aside. We're gonna get back together, and then you find out your ex-wife is fucking your best friend, and you're just completely out of this relationship at that point. And that's how I feel like with the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. I'm so disappointed with them this season. This is the first time in a long, long time where I've just been like, okay, I'm really not looking forward to this next season in particular, because we've had everything from trading George Pickens, which would be the stupidest thing to do right now, trading T.J. Watt, which, that'd be even dumber than that, and what they're doing right now, and waiting for Aaron Rodgers. And it's just kind of like, after a month of this shit's gotten old. I mean, it's not even like we're getting the good Aaron Rodgers. The Aaron Rodgers that had just left Green Bay, was a 4-time MVP with the Green Bay Packers. No, we're getting the charred remains from his disastrous tenure as the New York Jets presenter, because it was Aaron Rodgers presents the New York Jets starring Aaron Rodgers, and everything had to go through him. Now, I thought the Steelers would be smart enough to re-sign Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, one of the two, I didn't think it is, and maybe re-sign some other players. Like, the point it lost me was when they got rid of Najee Harris. At that point, I was just kind of like, okay, like, you've completely just lost me altogether. But then Justin Fields signs with the Jets, Russell Wilson signs with the Giants, and now we're currently in a standstill right now, waiting for the first round of the draft to take place. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers has been thinking like he's the mastermind behind this, like he's controlling the Steelers and here. And no, he's not. He's just being a complete asshole about this. And so every time that Aaron Rodgers, and that brings us to Pat McAfee. I should go to that. That brings us to Pat McAfee, who, of course, is friends with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers has been on Pat McAfee's show several times. There was a lot of disputes about whether or not he was going to make his announcement when he was here in Pittsburgh last week for the big night out. And no, Aaron Rodgers didn't show up, which kind of peed everybody off. And then Thursday morning came around, and so everyone got the notification that Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the Pat McAfee show. And then all of a sudden, all the Pittsburgh sports media were just like, "Ooh, does this mean that he's finally going to make the announcement that he's coming, or is he just going to dick around with us?" Spoiler alert: he was dicking around with everybody. He's the ultimate cock tease, and at this point, nobody should want Aaron Rodgers on your team. But the Steelers are going to just keep chugging along here and hope that the draft actually works out in their favor. But let's listen to some of what Aaron Rodgers has to say here. And I'm not going to go to the 40-minute clip here from the Pat McAfee show where he's just going on and on about what nobody wants to hear about. Like, nobody cares about what Aaron Rodgers has to say right now. Are you going to play next year or not? That's the big question everyone wants to know. Are you going to play this year? Are you going to go to the Vikings? Are you going to go to the Steelers? Or are you going to the Saints? Derek Carr's not coming back this year, so where are you going to go? And let's go ahead and take a look here. This is from First Take, and let's just go ahead and play some of the clip here.
Aaron Rodgers' future is uncertain. He's been open about his priorities, including personal matters and a desire to join a team that wants him and has a strong chance of winning. Rodgers discussed his split from the Jets with Pat McAfee yesterday and what that in-person meeting was like with new head coach Aaron Glenn.
I think we're going to have this long conversation. I've flown across the country, and 20 seconds in, he goes, literally, I'm talking to the GM about something, and he leans to the edge of the sheet and goes, "So do you want to play football?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested." And he said, "We're going a different direction with quarterback." And I said, and I was kind of shocked. Now, not shocked because I didn't think that was a possibility. Listen, of course, they want to move on, that's totally fine. But shocked because I just flew across country. You could have told me this on the phone. If we weren't even going to have a conversation, and this is verbatim exactly how it happened. So I said, "Huh?" And he goes, "We just want to know how you want it released, the messaging." And I said, "Why?" And then he said,
"Well, gee, I could think of a couple reasons why, but in his defense, he makes a good point. Like, he flew himself out all the way from California to New York, only to have the New York Jets basically tell him, "Yeah, we're going in a different direction." You could have easily just picked up the phone, called Aaron Rodgers, and said, "Hey, got a quick question for you, buddy. Are you going to want to play football again next year?" And he probably goes, "Yeah." It's just like, "Yeah, we're going in a different direction." Okay, and then to be like, the whole thing, like that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, why even bother having that meeting if you're literally just going to tell him we're going in a different direction? Like, it does not make any sense whatsoever why he's going down that pathway. Like, why that was like what they went down that pathway. But to the second part of that is just like, why do you want me to tell you how do you want to do this? Well, it's just like, well, gee, let me think about the stuff that you did this past season. You got the head coach fired. You got your general manager fired, and then you brought in your buddy you brought in Devontae Adams to hope to turn the team around because your team was struggling to get any wins. And then when the season was over, you had 2 less wins this year than you had when Zach Wilson was your quarterback the year before. So yeah, I think there's a reason why they want to go to you, because this, like I said before, it's your production. You're the one who made this possible. So yeah, you made this bed, now lie in and bury it. But let's continue on here.
I don't want to be up in front of the room saying something and have guys looking back at you.
Oh my God, what a shocker. Again, where was that last season? Or are you just playing it up for the cameras? Because, yeah, it really does feel like it really didn't feel like that last year. I can tell you that much.
Interesting. And I said, what does that even mean? Are you assuming that I would be in the back of the room during a team meeting undermining what you're saying? I said, you don't know me. And he said, you don't know me. And then I said, exactly, which is why I flew across the country to have a face-to-face meeting with you to talk about my experience with the Jets and to hear your vision for the team. 20 seconds in. What I thought was going to be a couple-hour meeting turned into like a 15-minute meeting.
I mean, look, here's the funny thing, though, and someone on the comment actually made this point I'm about to make here. Let's just say they did it over the phone. Aaron Rodgers would have been like, man, can you believe they didn't do this they didn't have this meeting with me? It's just like, I don't know. But it's just like it really does feel like there was this sense that, like, it literally feels like he's trying to make it all about himself. And he's made some good points in there, but the Jets, I think, had to make that decision. The Jets had to make that decision. You didn't need to have him fly in from California to New York to say. You could have just done it over the phone. But at the same time, this needed to be done, man, because what happened with the Jets when he was running the show there was just abysmal. It was just disastrous. It just didn't work. And Aaron Glenn, I hope that you're doing I hope that you get this team back to some relevancy, and you got a good quarterback to do it with, Justin Fields, which brings us to the second part of this that I want to know about, is that I think a lot of people want to know about it. What about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, what is his future plans overall? Now, let me see if I can find, and more importantly, let me see if I can find a video that actually sums this down a little bit and doesn't make you sit there for 40 minutes like the actual interview is. Because, yeah, this is a 44-minute interview on the Pat McAfee Show's YouTube channel. But let me see if I can find a shortened version of it. And there really is not. I literally looked on there and I skimmed through most of the videos there. Kind of like with the interview itself, he does not really give you a straightforward answer of what he's trying to do here. But I'll kind of sum it up for you here because I can just run it down for you like this. There was nothing made about Aaron Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh. He was still considering retirement. He was still considering, going his own way and going in his own direction. He still thinks that Minnesota could be in play here. So yeah, it was a complete waste of time just to sit there and just watch him go and do this whole thing. And there's been some speculation that the Steelers may go ahead and start with Mason Rudolph if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign. Which at this point, you might as well do it, man. I mean, but I did find one video here I want to bring to your attention. That's Good Sports did a great video on this whole thing called Aaron Rodgers Insufferably Wastes Our Time Again. And yeah, a 44-minute video where he does literally nothing but talk about not the stuff we want to hear about. Yeah, that's a waste of time. And it starts off on a great note with, the intro, a part of the interview, and it literally says on here, attention-grabbing intro.
A lot of people think that I'm desperate for attention, even though I haven't talked to you or anybody else in 3 months. But
I'm sorry. I got to hear that again because that's just beautiful right there.
A lot of people think that I'm desperate for attention, even though I haven't talked to you or anybody else in 3 months.
No, we know you're desperate for attention, dude. That's why you completely destroyed the New York Jets. And even when you went to the Jets, you had to make it a grand spectacle about where you were going to go. It's like the opposite of when LeBron James said he was leaving Cleveland to go to Miami, which is going to get mentioned right now.
But
if there were ever an inverse to the LeBron James decision,
this fall I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
It was Aaron.
See, when LeBron James did that, we at least got an answer to where the hell he was going. I mean, it was an event. Some people may have said that we wasted our time with it, but wait until you sit with. But man, 15 years later, we would be saying something. We would not saying the same thing when Aaron Rodgers is well, technically he hasn't made his decision yet, but continuing on here.
Aaron Rodgers going on Pat McAfee's show this week.
Listen, this entire time I haven't felt like I owed anybody some sort of decision at any point. This is my life.
Really? As one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, you don't feel like you owe a single one of the teams who would take a chance on you at age 41 any sort of decision at any point? Dude, you're such an ego-driven asshole.
And I have, a couple people in my inner circle who are really battling some difficult stuff. So I have a lot of things that are taking my attention, and have beginning in really January, away from football.
Oh God, I'm sorry, Aaron. I did not know that. I am sorry, I didn't have the full story. Please take your time.
I said, you don't know me.
That's what Aaron Rodgers does to us, right? He makes us angry by saying some shit, and then he tries to make us feel bad for getting angry at the shit he says. And I'm not sure anybody's better at doing it. He's telling us he's not holding the Steelers hostage. And then you pull the frame back just a little bit, and you see the Pittsburgh Steelers locked in a cage next to him. And we're like, Aaron, are you sure you're not holding them hostage? And he's like,
And I've been upfront with him about that, and said, listen, if you need to move on, if you need to do something, by all means, like nothing but love and respect.
Today on the Pat McAfee Show, Aaron Rodgers announced...
Thankfully me, I don't watch porn.
Sorry, wrong clip. He said he was there to clear up all the rumors about him.
Yeah, I'll set it all straight.
Spoiler alert, he didn't. And this is like a very long intro for Brandon's video, but I'll go ahead and link it in the description below, but because it's definitely something you want to check out, because it's really, really funny stuff. But yeah, pretty much. And I just want to say right off the bat here, before I get people who say, like, why am I hating on Aaron Rodgers so much? And I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. I don't hate him. I don't hate Pat McAfee. And far from it. I think Pat McAfee is on his way to becoming one of the next great sports entertainers out there. And, you know, with Lee Corso unfortunately announcing his retirement this year, and, you know, him coming on to the College Game Day show, I mean, he's really taken... I mean, he really could be... I'm really interested to see what he's going to do on College Game Day in terms of what Pat McAfee's going to do in general. And that should be something that should be very interesting to see, especially with Lee Corso leaving there. But I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. I actually think Aaron Rodgers is a much better quarterback than Tom Brady is. I'll stick with that till the day I die. Like, I've respected him for what he did in Green Bay. I liked a lot of what he did in Green Bay. And yeah, I was one of those people that back in 2022 when, you know, or 2023, because 2022 was Russell Wilson. Like, I was one of those guys that was looking at the possibility of him coming to Pittsburgh, be like, yeah, I would be okay with that. I would not give up 3 first-round draft picks to go and get him, but I would like to have him on this team. That was 2 years ago, and times have changed. And the more and more that we see more of this unveiling of who Aaron Rodgers really is, and what kind of a sick, twisted person he really is, and the people that he gets behind, you know, RFK Jr. But yeah, that's the point where it's just kind of like, yeah, nothing would make me happier if the Steelers stayed as far the hell away from you as much as possible, which I hope that they do that, because especially when you also consider that something else you have to keep in mind about this whole thing, which I'm going to get to in just a second. Here's something else you got to keep in mind about what's going on with the Steelers right now, because, you know, they have contract negotiations that they have to work with TJ Watt. His contract is up, I think next year. I think it is, it's either next year or the. No, I think it's next year, because it was part of the last deal he signed. TJ Watt is the crux of that Steelers defense, and taking him out of the game, as we've seen when he's injured and not playing, hurts the Steelers big time. So trying to get rid of him is not a good thing for the Steelers if they want to stay relevant at this point in time, and letting him go to another team. But sadly, the contract negotiations between the Steelers and TJ Watt are surprisingly not going pretty well, because they're waiting for Aaron Rodgers at this point. And the fact that they've waited so long here, and the fact that it seems like Aaron Rodgers is winning this battle, I can only think back to what TJ Watt is probably thinking right now when he's watching this whole thing, and he's probably thinking to himself this:
I can't believe I'm losing to this guy.
That's, of course, John Lovitz as Michael Dukakis on Saturday Night Live. But, you know, that's one of the great quotes from SNL's history. You know, from the George Bush Michael Dukakis debate in 1988. You know, George Bush just goes on this rant about, let me just sum up, on track, stay the course, 1,000 points of light, and then the debate moderator is going like, Governor Dukakis rebuttal, and John Lovitz is just like, I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. I mean, that's literally what it feels like when you watch TJ Watt and this whole thing, because it's just like, if I had to choose between a guy that I already have, who has been a multiple defensive MVP contender, and has won the defensive MVP award is 1 year, and it was nearly going to do it this year. But if I'm going to choose between him or a 41-year-old quarterback that wants multiple millions of dollars to come play for this team, I don't know about you, but I'm taking the guy that I've had in my building for the last 8 years in TJ Watt. I'm going to sign him to a new deal and ride it out with him. That would be my decision if I was running the Pittsburgh Steelers. But sadly, I'm not running the Pittsburgh Steelers, and quite frankly, I don't know if I ever will. But that'd be my decision. But again, I'm looking at TJ Watt, and he's probably thinking to himself once again,
I can't believe I'm losing to this guy.
Because why would the Steelers still be holding out hope for Aaron Rodgers at this point? At this point, if he doesn't know what he's doing, why are we going to wait for this? I think he's even said he's willing to wait until late August when this preseason's going on and quarterbacks get injured to potentially come in and replace somebody. It's just that's not a game plan if you're trying to keep yourself competitive at this point. At this point, the Steelers should go ahead and draft a quarterback this weekend. If they could find a way to draft a quarterback this weekend without having to lose TJ Watt in the process, that'd be the greatest thing ever. That'd be like Christmas Day for Steeler fans everywhere, because it's just hey, we get to keep our guy and we get to train a new guy going forward. And I think the Steelers will more than likely pick a quarterback. The big question is, though, are they going to have to trade up to go get him? Especially now with New Orleans, there was that story that came out earlier in the week about Derek Carr. He's got another injury that could derail his 2025 season. Let me see if I can find it here, because I can't remember what it was, but it was a big story. It was a big story this week. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It should not be that hard to find here. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause and try to find this. Okay, I found it here, and it was from last week, not this week. But Derek Carr, he of course. He had an injury that cost him pretty much the last half of last season. Well, now he's got a shoulder injury that makes it even more than likely that the Saints will take a serious look at another quarterback going into the draft this season. There's so many choices for them, but then it was also revealed that Ryan Ramczyk, their longtime offensive tackle, has retired. So that leads into a lot of interesting questions about where the Saints are going to go with this. Is this going to finally be the year they pick a quarterback in the first round that they haven't done in a long time? Or will a team like the Steelers have to move up ahead of them to go and do it? Now, they've been saying that Carolina could be a place where the Steelers could move up, as they are reportedly interested in potentially grabbing some draft picks possible. They don't need a quarterback because they've got Bryce Young, who did get better last season. So, there's the possibility that the Steelers could move up to get somebody like a Shedeur Sanders if he's still there, which it'd be great if he was still there, but considering who we've got coming in before that, we got Tennessee, who's more than likely going to take Cam Ward, then the Cleveland Browns, who need a quarterback because Deshaun Watson ain't coming back anytime soon. As much as I like to see Kenny Pickett getting a chance on another team, I really don't think that anyone's going to be that excited for Kenny Pickett to take over the Browns or really give him a chance to go somewhere. I hope it works out for him. I really hope it does. But I'd be better off putting Joe Flacco in there, honestly, because Joe Flacco's back with that team now. And then you've got the New York Giants, who, they've got Russell Wilson, but they got rid of Daniel Jones, so now they need to figure out what their future is going to be at quarterback. And so that's 3 teams already where there's already considerations for possible quarterback pickups there. And so that brings us to the Steelers, who, like I said, are going to have to move up, likely to go and get Shedeur Sanders or whatever quarterback is available to them. They could probably go risk it on Jackson Dart, which I'm not too certain about that in particular. There's been a lot of early buzz about him, but I don't know. The name Jackson Dart, that's one of those. I'm not usually the type of person to say this, but a name like Jackson Dart doesn't really equate to some great success in the NFL, in my personal opinion. I mean, it feels like a name that is probably one that's like, like Jim Clausen or Tim Tebow or Johnny Manziel. Like, this is a potential bust in the making that everyone's hyping up to be the next big product. Or Trey Lance, for a recent reference. But try to look at the draft board. It's Tennessee first, Cleveland second, New York Giants third, Patriots fourth. Well, we know the Patriots, Jaguars, they're not going to take a quarterback. The Raiders are at 6, and Carolina's actually picking at 8, not 7. Jets are actually picking at 7. Which some have said that maybe they'll go after QB2, but considering that they have Justin Fields, probably not going to go there. The 4 teams that I'd be worried about getting a quarterback early on: Tennessee, Cleveland, New York, and Las Vegas. Those are the 4 ones I'd be most worried about. So yeah, I think if somebody like a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward's already taken by that point, Steelers would probably just best to stick with where they are and just get somebody else of drastic need, like a running back, but then again, the last time we got a first-round running back here, the Pittsburgh sports media ran him out of town so quickly, even though he was one of the things that was carrying the offense of this team. So yeah, good job on that, by the way. Some people said Ashton Genty might be an option, but I think he's going to go early in the draft. Like, I think he's going to go to either New York or the Las Vegas Raiders. I think he's going to be very highly up there. Let the other sports media criticize him for being a first-round running back, because when has a first-round running back ever done anything of noteworthiness? Saquon Barkley. Yeah, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson. Yeah. We could stop this bullshit about first-round running backs not being worth a damn, because, yeah, we have already proven and established that is complete and utter BS at this point. But yeah, I think the Steelers will try to get a quarterback here, but I think if they're going to do it, they're going to have to move up to get him. Like, they're going to have to probably, more than likely, they're going to have to move up ahead of New Orleans, although I think New Orleans might just go with an offensive tackle now that Ryan Ramczyk is gone. Like, if the Steelers... But then again, I was going to say this, but then I realized that if the Steelers would move ahead of maybe the Giants, move ahead of like the Patriots or the Jaguars at 4 and 5, that's probably territory where they would be adding T.J. Watt to the equation. I just don't want them to do that. Like, if you can't get a quarterback before any of the other quarterbacks are taken at this point, just stick at 21 and just hope for the best, and whoever you can get the best player available. Because that's probably what's going to happen. And the Steelers will usually do that. I mean, we expect them to move up. They very rarely ever do. And when they do, it's never as successful as it could have been. I mean, Devin Bush was a great example of that. So far, Broderick Jones has been kind of a mixed bag. But yeah, so that's just my thoughts on that. If I'm the Steelers, I would put my focus right now on re-signing T.J. Watt as quickly as possible, and then hoping you can get a quarterback in the first round on Thursday. And not even thinking about Aaron Rodgers. Let Aaron Rodgers think about it let him retire. Let him go to Minnesota. Let him go to New Orleans. Let him go somewhere else but Pittsburgh. Because, quite frankly, if the Steelers... I mean, honestly, let's just think of it this way. If the Steelers gave Aaron Rodgers what he wanted, it would go against everything the Steelers have been against for so many years. This guy would be a distraction right from the get-go. And when this team will lose, which they will with him... Yeah, who's going to be the pressure put on? Who's the pressure going to be put on? Him, because of what he did in New York, and the way he exited himself out of Green Bay, and doing the same thing in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's going to be that type of thing. So, but anyway, that's my thoughts on that, and we will have all those questions answered this Thursday when I do the live rewatch of the NFL Draft right here on the Reviewing Network Live. So check that out Thursday night. And another plug right there. So with all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at some recommendations, and we can go ahead and get on out of here. So last week, of course, we had the big new releases with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and also Hard Eyes. So we're getting a lot of the boutique classic titles coming out this week, some for the first time on 4K. None of them are bigger than, of course, Tombstone, which coincidentally is coming out a few weeks after Val Kilmer passed away. It's getting a nice steelbook for the 4K release, and And it might be hard to find in stores. Hopefully I can find one at a reasonably good price online, because I want to get my hands on it. It's a movie that I don't have in my collection per se, but it's one I kind of want to get my hands on. Some other catalog titles include The Hunt from 2020, Sneakers with Robert Redford and Dan Aykroyd, the follow-up for Phil Walden Robinson after Field of Dreams, coming out on 4K for the first time. Career Opportunities is coming out on 4K for the first time, a very underrated John Hughes movie, one of my favorite films from '91. Captain Planet's coming out on Blu-ray, which is funny because the DVD set for that show came out not but a few months ago, and I got my hands on that already. I don't think I'm going to be upgrading to Blu-ray on that one, but I think that might be a Warner Archive Actually, no, Warner Archive doesn't exist anymore. I just realized that. So I don't know. So this might be something you might be able to get in stores, maybe. But we also have Foul Play getting a 4K release for the first time. Chevy Chase's first major movie after leaving Saturday Night Live. Never seen it before. It's one of those Chevy Chase movies I've yet never seen, but I've kind of wanted to check out. So maybe one day I'll definitely check it out. Hopefully I can find it at a good price. And then one of my favorite shows from last year is getting a Blu-ray release this week. Hysteria Season 1, which is the only season because it was released on Peacock and it lasted one season. It's a really, really damn good show with Julie Bowen, Bruce Campbell, Anna Camp. I mean, this really funny show, funny horror comedy series that's basically a satire of the 80s satanic panic that everyone was going through. And yeah, a really great show, and coming out on Blu-ray this week for the first time, so that's another one I'm hoping to get my hands on at some point. So, but other than that, though, that's about it for the titles this week, and that's going to do it for this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And a reminder that this Thursday we are going to have another episode coming up after the draft. I'll be recording my thoughts as the draft goes on about which selections are made, which ones I think are very good, which ones are not so good. What does the Steelers do at quarterback? Who's going to take a quarterback? Who's going to trade up? Who's going to give away to, move up and for a better spot? We'll have all those answers for you coming up on Thursday night, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, we're back next Sunday with another all-new episode. So with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please go ahead and hit that playlist. Check out the last episode I did. And with all that said, I will see you guys next time for another episode. So thanks for joining us, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, we are out.